Hi, I'm Jerry Job, and this is another iColorama procedural wherein I show you how I went about creating the image that you see right here with the painted look on the figures in the picture, plus all the framing and the matting that's done, and it was all done in iColorama, except for the original painterly image, and I'll show you how I went about doing that as well. So this is our finished product, and I started with this image right here, which is a picture that a friend of mine took of her son and a friend at the beach. I took it through Glaze, which is an app that I've talked about before that actually gives a painterly look to an image. If I zoom in on this, you'll see the it looks like actual paint strokes. I liked this, and I sent this to the woman who took the picture, and she enjoyed that. But then I started experimenting some more, and I took the picture through a Jixi Pix app called Artista Haiku. That was a bold choice and probably not something that I really wanted to do with the image. I decided then to take that haiku version through Glaze as well, just to see what would happen. And I've liked the result of that. I'm going to show you that. I go into Blend here and pick out the photo. It was this one right here. And I like that abstract look. But of course, you can't see the figures at all. You can't see the boy and girl at all. So I decided to blend the two together, the glazed version that I had before and then the glazed haiku version that I have here. I can do that with a brush mask. I'm going to mask out the haiku version to show the glazed version underneath. Well, where are the figures underneath? It's sort of hard to tell from this, so I lowered the opacity just to see where my figures are below before I start brushing out the mask. I lower the size of the brush and I start painting in the brush mask where the figures are. Well, that's gotten too much of it. If I bring up the opacity, you'll see that there's more of the glazed underlying image around the edges of the people. So what I can do is zoom in and refine the mask by changing the mask from paint to erase, and then going back in and bringing it in around the face. I can always go back in and hit the paint. So I'm tuning in around the mask here. I can zoom in even closer and erase the mask in the arm area there. Oh, but then I can go back and paint it in if I've gotten too much. And that way I work my way around the entire image, refining the mask. Change to erase, come back in here, around her legs. Change it to paint. Paint in around her foot. Refining the mask. Oops, I wanted to erase around her leg there. And then I can do the same thing over here with the boy figure. Erase where I don't want it. Paint where I do want it. It doesn't take that long when you're not trying to make a very accurate mask. This one doesn't need to be all that accurate. I'm using a soft-edged brush for the mask, and that helps make it not need to be that accurate because I've got a real soft edge on my mask here. Okay, so that pretty much gets my mask the way I want it to be. Let's go back in, I'll zoom back in on her head here and get that back in place. Okay. So, now I've got my mask. I'm seeing the glazed image below the haiku version. The haiku version is kind of bold though, kind of dark. So I'm going to apply that blend, and then I'm going to adjust. And the mask is still in place. So if I go to Tone Lab 1 here, that helps wash out the background a little bit here. I'm going to make it a little darker by raising the white level, and then I'm going to saturate it a little bit. And that's probably pretty good, so I'll apply that. Then I'm going to reverse the mask because I invert the mask. I want to add a little saturation to the figures themselves. So now this, because I've inverted the mask, if I go in and adjust vibrance and up the saturation, that's going to apply to the figures, not to the surrounding area. So I'll apply that, and now I'm going to get rid of the mask. I have no need for it anymore. So I remove the mask. The next thing I want to do, I liked this, but I wanted to frame it. And a frame will usually throw a shadow on the actual image. So the first thing I want to do is go back in and apply that shadow that we would see. That's done with preset border number 3. Well, that's a strong shadow. So let's lower the radius and lower the opacity as well. But we can also make the shadow not be black, but let's make it brown instead. Nice dark brown. And then we can lower the opacity to where we get a nice shadow look there. And then I'm going to save that. I don't need to apply it before I save it, because what we're going to be doing is working on top of this image right here. So just so long as I have it saved off with that shadow, I can go in and make my changes. The next thing I want to do is make the matte. We're going to build up this frame, and we're going to start with the matte. I start with a preset gradient. It's white by default. But let's make a picture, a color, pick a color that's actually within the underlying image. I do that by using swatch. And here's a nice dark green that I want to use. Or actually, it's a mid-tone green. So I'm going to apply that, and then I'm going to give texture to the matte with texture. There's a nice canvas texture right down here. The 4th row down, the 4th column over is a nice canvas texture. It's too large as it is, so I'm going to lower the size to about 0.94 there. Oops. And I'm going to increase the contrast on that just a bit so that we can really see that texture on the matte. I apply that. Now I'm going to want to add a frame on top of that, a wood frame. And that wood frame is going to cast its own little shadow. So we'll go back into preset border number 3, and we're going to lower the opacity on that somewhere around in here. I'm going to apply that. Now, the borders do not allow for, while they allow for a color, they don't really allow for a pattern. Textured, a wood textured thing. So what I did was I created a mask that was white, where I would not want the border to be applied. Let me just show you that. White, and then I went into border, and I raised the radius a little bit, and I created a mask out of this. Black reveals, white conceals, as I've said in other masking tutorials. So let's go back to where we were with our matte, and I'm going to load my mask and then I can go in and go into texture and pick out one of the wood textures I chose this one right here, and you can see that it applies a wood texture around the edge here. I'm going to change it from multiply to normal, and I'm going to up the contrast a little bit, and I'm also going to rotate it because I don't like it being straight up and down. So somewhere right around in there. I'm going to apply that. Now that still looks a little flat. Usually you would have some sort of rounded edge. So what I'm going to do is go in with the preset border. I'm going to go back with the number 3 here. I'm going to change it to a white border. I'm going to lower the radius and lower the opacity, and you have what looks like a nice rounded edge to my wooden frame. I apply that. Now my frame is ready for my image. So I'm going to go into Effects and Blend. I'm going to pick out the photo, which is the... Oops, I forgot that we have not removed the brush mask. So there we go. There's our image with our shadow. Now the only thing we need to do is to use 2 fingers to pinch that down. And when you get it to where you want it, in the middle of that frame, however much matting you want to have, we have our image completed. And that's how we would go about creating a multi-level frame, matting image within a program, iColorama, that doesn't necessarily allow for layers. You're saving off different portions of the image and then creating that frame around it. I hope this has been helpful to you. There will be some more of these procedurals in the future. I'm Jerry Jobe. Thank you very much for listening.